here we are, Gordie Stewart, founder of Lot 22. Gordie, you and I have been friends for years, so give me your background, what you did before Lot 22, and how all this came about.
Good question. I was actually the largest car dealer in the state of Alabama for 20 years.
God love you.
And I'm still recovering from it, but I'm retired from that now.
Good year to retire.
Yeah, I think so. Right when the problems started happening, I started considering how lucky I would be if anybody called and offered to buy the place, and somebody did, and so I can't believe it. But anyways, my background has always been in marketing, of course, always in the automotive industry primarily. But
So you graduated what in college? What was your major?
actually, I was a graphic design major. I was an art major, much to the chagrin of my parents. Which,
So how do you go from that to car dealership?
well, I wanted to have an apartment and pay rent, and so the only option available to me at the time was to sell cars.
Okay.
I may have been genetically predisposed to the car business.
So you had Hoover Toyota for over 20 years, and I know that Hoover Toyota ranked, number one in the state every year?
Yep.
All right, so when you moved to Alabama, it's what, 2001, 2002?
2002 is when we moved down here.
Okay, so you did all the cheesy advertisements on TV, Yellow Pages.
Yeah. No, but that was the first thing I noticed when I turned on the TV was how many cheesy TV commercials there were, and everybody saying they'll do whatever it takes regardless, and people in wheelbarrows and things like that screaming, "I'm not coming down from this ladder till we sell 10 cars." And coming from Detroit, I thought that was pretty outdated. You know, Detroit was a little bit more progressive, believe it or not, in that regard. It was also more progressive in murder, but that's a side subject. But it was a little bit of a shock to come to the South, deep South, Alabama, and see that there was definitely a negative stigma associated with the car business. I had a couple guys on my kids' baseball team. One of them was a plumber, and he said, "You sell cars? Boo-wee, everybody cover your wallets." You know, and I had some similar ideas about plumbing as well, but I was definitely the outcast here. But the funny thing was, when I first got here, and this is a true story, Birmingham News sat me down, and they said...
the newspaper at the time.
The newspaper at the time, they don't even exist anymore,
No.
which makes my story even better. But they said... "Son, there ain't a car dealer in Birmingham that doesn't have $1 million contract with us. Here's your $1 million contract. You sign this for a year, or you can't be in the Birmingham News."
So your dealership, $1 million.
Before
A year.
Annual deal. I had to. They were saying it was very mafia-like, actually, but they said you sign this or you're not going to be in the Birmingham News. And I said, well, I don't take too kindly to that side of that kind of threat or extortion. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead. I read the Birmingham News. It looks like a high school newspaper. I think I'm just going to bail and you guys. So immediately I became enemy number one with that platform of media, the written platform publication. And then I was left to think on my own, So what's left? If a car dealer in 2002 doesn't have newspaper ads, what do you do? Well, TV. Everyone was doing TV and radio. And I got into that, and because I didn't know anybody, I hired an agency to try and help me with that. And they were fine and all, but what I realized was I was calling them to say, all right, I'll run $100,000 this month on TV. And all they were doing was calling the the news channel and saying, oh, yeah, he wants to run $100,000 this month. I was like, well, wait, I could have made that phone call. And they were taking 15-20% of my budget. And I was like, I don't really like this. I'm going to start making my own commercials. And finally, luckily, as the time would have it, when the internet really was taking off and social media in particular, I embraced that. I was like, finally, I don't have to do any form of traditional advertising. This is about 2008, 2009.
That's the time of The Big Short, Facebook, and all this stuff comes out.
Right, yeah.
So you see this brand new, frontier.
It was awesome. And I was like, I got to be the first to embrace this. And so I was. And next thing you know, within 6 months, I was being invited out to Facebook and Google and YouTube and Twitter. And they were like, you are a unicorn. Wait a minute. You're a car dealer. You're doing advertising on social media. No car dealers are doing that. And you do it yourself?
In America.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was the first one.
Wow.
And so they said, you're doing a great job, but Let me introduce you to Jimmy over here. He's in charge of automotive international for Facebook. He's like 21. He just graduated from Stanford. He's like, yeah, you're doing pretty good, man. But it's like, like you could do better. And it's like, look at this. And he shows me dark posts and these techniques. And I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, now I get it even better. I was just trying to get likes and trying to get engagement, and it turns out that was the most worthless thing you could do.
You got to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And then, of course, when I came back, I not only implemented my own business, but and I was just so grateful for it because I was getting such a great reaction from it and such engagement and great response. I had other businesses reaching out to me saying, hey, we saw your pictures from Facebook. Was that Zuckerberg behind you? Will you help us with ours? So a country club called me, a rodeo called me, local dentist called me, and they were like, can you help? Can you help? We want to get in on this. And so long story, even longer, but fast forward, going through that process, I've been spending my own money, $100,000 a month for the last 10 years. And now to have an agency of my own, it's a dream come true, actually. The car business was not a dream of mine. I was a reluctant participant, actually. Okay. But I not only get to deploy the things that I learned and the principles and the campaign, best practices that I adopted over the years, but I get to implement them and correlate them to other industries too. And it turns out they're not that different. Whether you're a doctor looking for clients or an e-commerce company selling shoes, many of the concepts are the same. Yeah, it's a product. And the opportunities in campaign targeting and the types of campaign styles that there are, while those continue to evolve, they only continue to get better. And so the application of logic combined with the past experience of doing it myself and spending my own money, I think makes me a bit of a unicorn, because I don't think there's an agency owner that I've ever heard of that actually had been doing this for a decade with his own money.
Wow.
Especially at that level. $100,000 is a lot for Facebook ads a month for one guy.
That's beyond just Facebook. It's anything on a phone. It can be YouTube TV. It can be Google Ads, anything you want it to be.
Right. I evolved into Google Ads, and that became probably 40% of the business. But I was always absurdly heavy on social, more than anybody I know. As the other dealers got on and looked for agencies that could possibly help them, a lot of them adopted Google Ads as being the number one platform that they were on. And there's a lot of merit to that too, but I still saw a better return on investment on the campaigns I was running on social.
So what do you run across the most? And like in terms with me and my political campaign, when you helped, I already embraced that because I had a limited budget and I couldn't afford TV. I couldn't afford radio. I couldn't afford what these other guys could do. But the impact that I did the first time and winning the second time very handily against a crowded field was overwhelming, because I know how it works just from being a consumer of it.
Right.
But you're also, someone who develops this stuff. What do you see out in the marketplace? Because everybody has a little bit of knowledge, that can be a dangerous thing sometimes.
Right.
What do you see are the major flaws? Everybody does the same thing, that they think they know a better way.
Well, I suppose there's a myriad of answers, but I can give you one of the most obvious ones is people think because they posted something, people are going to see it.
Okay.
And I think the first revelation that occurs when I meet a client is I reveal to them that, in fact, organic is completely dead. No one's going to see it. No one's going to discover it unless they actually go to your profile and want to research you.
And how they do that?
Well, they have to know you exist in the first place. But there's an interesting thing that's happening, though, with the value of organic. It sounds like it's not worth to post anything if you're a business. I mean, Facebook dials it down so that nobody does see your stuff on purpose. They want you to pay to get people to see it.
Okay.
So that's the evidence that the organic doesn't get you anywhere. But there's a secondary value growing to organic, which is a little bit more avant-garde to appreciate, but 80% of people under 40 years old now, when they research something, whether it be a political candidate or a product or a business, they check their social first. They don't Google it, and they don't go to a website looking for a website. Partially, the reason is because they're so commonly used to having bad websites or poor listings in Google anyways. But younger people, is 80% of people under 40 years old, and I do it too, and I'm 50, right? I go to social first to see if that candidate is legit, if that business is legit, and what they're up to, and look for behind the scenes type stuff. And let me tell you something, if they don't exist, if they haven't been doing this for a while, if their feed is dead or outdated, do you even exist? I mean, I presume that your business is done, bankrupt, moved, closed. If you're not updating that. So now the organic feed that you have is important in that regard because people are going to come and research you and see if you're legit. But as far as reaching the audience that you want, that's available through paid targeting. And that's obviously the majority of what I did with my own business, and that's what I continue to recommend to others. And if you look at the return on investment, it's still better than anything, and it's trackable. So,
Well, how do you tell folks when they go? I know how a lot of small businesses will use Facebook and do the basic. Hey, you can buy $5 a month or $10 a month.
Right.
How's that different from what you do at Lot 22?
well, I'm vehemently against those kinds of programs because they kind of trick you into thinking that you're going to actually get something for it. And after you've been running your own campaigns for a while, you start to recognize certain patterns. And that is, one, you've got to compete with now. I mean, everybody is doing social media ads. Everyone is doing direct to consumer digital marketing of some sort, or at least the popularity has increased exponentially so that there's a competitive bid, if you will. And if your daily commitment of money isn't commensurate with your competition, you're not even going to be discovered. So $5 a day on a Facebook ad will get you absolutely nothing. I can just guarantee it.
Just to feel good.
I mean, you think you are. Maybe your mom might see it, and it's just because you cleverly targeted your own friends, which is what I do. If I only had $5, I would just increase the chances of my own friends discovering it. But so you have to be competitive from a budget standpoint, and that's a concept that a lot of businesses don't understand. They're actually competing with other people, and so you also can restrict the radius, the geographic targeting of your campaign to compress it in the most competitive way. So if you were selling ballet shoes, which I know you're inclined to consider,
all the time.
yeah, if you're selling ballet shoes and you had a limited budget of like $5,000 for the month, I would not suggest going for the whole state of Alabama.
Yeah, what's that going to do?
Well, it'd be so spread out and diluted, that you'd be chasing people for 20 cents if you look at the population, and depending on how the level of your targeting, how surgical it was. But what I would do in an example like that is I would obviously logically only target people that are first interested in ballet, right? I mean, that's a likely subject. The age group that is likely to be purchasing ballet shoes, consider that moms are probably the ones that are making the purchase for their 12-year-old daughter who is not going to be making the purchase, right? Actually, moms are really the secret to all digital marketing. You just target moms for everything.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I do.
But I would target, for instance, with a limited budget like that, keep it to maybe Birmingham and Huntsville at the most, to give you an idea of what population density can affect the algorithm, as well as, compressing the budget to maximize your daily, competitiveness, and then optimize the campaign accordingly as you go on. So those kinds of lessons and those kinds of philosophies are not taught in college.
No, I can only imagine. But that's what every agency does, right? They hire somebody who has a marketing degree out of Auburn, Alabama, or something like that, and
We have somebody with a marketing degree.
they can post.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
Yeah, they're not. Unfortunately, and I'm a big advocate of education and trying to re-engineer marketing degrees because I think right now they're completely worthless. I would hire an 18-year-old who got his Facebook and Google certifications in a matter of weeks before I would hire a marketing grad out of college.
Wow.
And that is a strong statement, but it is a fact. I can immediately use somebody who went through the online free certifications for these platforms, and somebody who graduates from college is not taught that. Now, they can quickly adapt and learn that, but it's ironic that you spend 4 years obtaining this degree and nobody needs you right now. You got to go back to school for a few weeks when you graduate.
And, back to what Lot 22 did for my campaign, that's one thing I always think about. The things, especially on the political side. Mm-hmm. A lot of politicians, and Obama was the first one to really do it. Trump did even better. And it seemed like, regardless of your political persuasion, it shook the tree because people are seeing these ads on an ongoing basis. They're not organically going to look up these sites.
Right.
They got to be reached out to.
Yeah.
And it does affect behavior, affects voting, affects issues because now what? When you say almost every person under 25 gets their news off social media, not off Fox or CNN or MSNBC.
I think it's under 50 now. Yeah.
So that being said, what do you see the landscape for political campaigns? In the past, most political campaigns, they're older people, they don't believe in it. I think the signs and the mailers are the way to go. But I know you helped me out immensely. I had very few signs, no mailers.
Right.
And it did very well. So what would you tell people looking to do a campaign? You don't have the big war chest that somebody else has.
Right.
They may have name recognition, but
if they're doing digital, that's even if they're doing traditional, let's go digital and kill them with a limited budget. We can beat anybody who's going to commit to 100% traditional with a small digital budget. That's how confident I am because everyone's looking at these things, these phones, right? And direct mail. Oh my goodness! I mean, how old are we? Another misconception is that older people are not on digital media.
I believe they are.
They're taking over. Grandparents are like all I have in my Facebook feed anymore. Right?
It's like because of COVID, they all kind of embraced it, and wasn't Facebook only meant for kids, and now all the old folks are on it now.
I'm so impressed. I say old folks. I guess we
us.
qualify. We're 50 and over, right? I'm so impressed by the stats coming out of YouTube. The average person consuming hunting videos, for instance, on YouTube is over 60 years old. And I have a client that's in the hunting business, and we have targeted people in New York and Pennsylvania along that border there and found a potpourri of 60-year-old men with money that consume hunting videos while they're riding the train to work or they're at their house.
Well, heck, they're sitting in the deer stand just bored to death.
Well, yeah, there isn't anybody that hunts anymore without one of these devices, checking the sports, checking the weather.
One thing you did, I know, for my campaign, and you've had political campaigns contact you on how to do this because you have challengers that have, good ideals, good candidate, but they're all just shaken to death to their core. They have to have this huge budget.
Right.
And, I'm somebody that believes you don't. I think you can do it for a fifth of the price of traditional and have much more of an impact.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I know. Like when my wife was watching on her phone in the morning, first thing she sees is my ad. The last thing she would see is my ad.
Right.
She never asked about a sign on the highway. I have a hard time believing that by driving 45 miles an hour in heavy traffic, you see that sign that somehow that converts you.
Yeah, we're all blind to it by now. It
becomes white noise. You just kind of ignore
it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in a format even like this, where a candidate, even almost like a resume,
right,
you can kind of show who you are, that you're real, you're genuine. It's not scripted. That you're a real person with real ideas is a lot more effective than the typical infomercial that these guys do on TV.
I mean, think right now who your district representative is. I don't know.
Okay.
You might know because you're in the politics. I don't
very
know.
old, been around a long time.
I bet very old, been around
and
a long time.
Zero social media.
You can't make this up, right? I mean, this is the same thing no matter where you go. It's the same story.
And almost no one knows who they are because no one ever votes. And
well, not only that, they don't communicate. They don't have any media channel of their own. They don't have any platform to share their work or their voting record. You have to go to some obscure website to find what your own representative voted, right?
Yep.
There's no transparency, and I think the political landscape is under siege of change right now. I mean, it's for the good, and it's fantastic. And the early adopters are going to be the greatest benefactors, just as I was in the car business. People want to know who their representative is. They want to know the personality. They want to have some avenue to insight as, is this person actually doing anything? Or is this a person that I only hear every 4 years when they rerun? You know, what do they do? I can't even tell you what a House representative does versus a Senate representative of my district. I don't know the difference.
That's a good point. So go back 3 or 4 points before. We talked about someone's to check out if somebody is alive or even out there on social media, not their website. And you said, well, it's true. How many posts have they had? When's the last post they made? If it was 2017, obviously they're not involved.
Right.
But if I'm a politician and you see, I don't go to his social media page and I found out, he does post about it every month. Okay. It's not that he's not informed, I'm not informed.
Right.
And so really, I think most people, that when they say, I don't do social media, they always assume it's just Facebook. They forget you got LinkedIn, you got YouTube TV, you got YouTube. You got all these things that people do have a channel.
Yeah.
And so they do have a media channel whether they realize it or not.
Right.
It's how they harness it and how they polish it and make it look good, because what people will see from that is what they're going to, the first impression thing.
Right.
If that's the first thing you're going to think of, dingy website, no followers on Instagram.
Right.
And it makes an impact.
Think of how accessible you are as a politician. Before email, you wrote a letter, to your politician. You weren't sure who it was. You read it in the newspaper, Now and then that graduated to send an email to your political leader,
and they're not reading those or ignoring them.
They don't read those.
No.
But social media, you can make a post, a direct message, especially to a local person. I mean, Trump didn't read all his tweets. Maybe he did. But, to a local politician, now you have this avenue of accessibility, and people can reach you and contact you and know you, and you can control that narrative, contribute to it, or just not be available, and you really look not available. If you're not involved and engaged with social, now you're really at a disadvantage, because you just appear inaccessible. You appear like an elitist. You're not available, and whoever's most available is going to win.
It's almost like, because you spent so many years with traditional media for your own business, and you had that aha moment to go to social media, which had never been tried or even done before.
Yeah.
And I won't put words in your mouth, maybe not some fancy algorithm or whatever that sets you apart from everybody else, but I'll say at Lot 22, it just seems like y'all had this Moneyball equation off the movie where, yes, it's y'all just see value in different things that other agencies dissuade.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of that. You really have to be familiar with what the platform offers in the first place.
Okay.
When you're a digital agency, operator.
Yeah.
In order to provide value to your clients, you got to be really familiar with all the campaign styles and techniques and opportunities. The things you can do, for instance, with an email list. If you give me an email list, I can get Facebook to look and see if it matches any Facebook profiles that they have on file.
Okay.
And we can set up ads to just those people.
Oh my gosh.
Not, profiles that are similar. We can say just the people on this list, if they have a Facebook profile, we want to present them with a message. And you can curate that list any way you want, however clever you are in developing that list and where you got that from. That's just an example of data, I guess, aggregation and using it as cleverly as possible. And the surgical techniques that are available are truly remarkable on these platforms. And if you're not familiar with these platforms as well as you should, then you can't make those suggestions to your client.
Well, do most other agencies
Yeah.
that are in your league, do they do these kind of things?
I want to say that I don't want to speak for them, but I will say I'm not aware of them doing these kinds of things, because you got to think most agencies hire, as I said earlier, kids out of college. And these guys don't know how to do it. They're not taught that.
Wow.
You could take certification classes and become familiar with the opportunities that are available on that, which is a step better. That's the 18-year-old I'd rather hire, right?
Yeah.
But that 18-year-old still does not have the experience of running campaigns to the level of $100,000 a month of his own money and making valid and genuine determinations on what works and what doesn't. If it's somebody else's money, you have to admit you tend to care not so much.
Yeah.
But when it's your own money, you A/B test stuff. And you're like, well, this picture of this car did really well. This side picture did horrible. What's the difference? Well, this one was sunny and this one was on a rainy day. Well, no more rainy day pictures, right? And you make these determinations and these beliefs start developing and becoming chipped into your stone. And then no matter what the product is or what the client is, you make a lot of these same logical applications, to your approach on content creation and how you develop these campaigns. And so there are certain campaign styles I think that are trash, and I'm not going to suggest them to a client. And I've developed that opinion through my own recent experiments, if you will.
I think a lot of people too, because we're consumers, that gives us just a little bit of knowledge, which makes it very dangerous sometimes.
Yes.
And I know one thing that Lot 22 and y'all did for me. One thing, I'm very coachable. And I remember you let all the posting go to you. Y'all did all the analytics, did all the videos. And if I did want to make a post or do my own video, I'd send it through you guys because I just know that you guys know when to send it at the right time, because everybody just thinks once you post something, you should blast it out there.
Right.
But they don't realize there's certain times a day, certain times a night.
You can improve the engagement. Yeah.
And I think the biggest problem is that people think they can do a better job themselves. And that's just common sense. I can get, when you're in the car dealership days, I'm sure they thought they'd get a better deal somewhere else.
Sure.
And then, or they got a brother, they got a friend, they got a guy. But I just see what you do at Lot 22 is very unique because everybody wants to get their brand out there. They want to engage people, and they want to control the narrative.
Right.
And I think that is what you do, whether you mean to or not, whether it be professional or personal. That is what your channel is going to do, for better or for worse.
Right. I think you're right. And I think back to your point also about people not knowing exactly what to do with social media, being overconfident that they're good at it. Some of the darkest and loneliest places I've ever been have been my relatives' Instagram feeds. It's like, I thought they were cool. I thought they were okay, but boy, their Instagram feed is so sad and pitiful. Do they have any? They posted a picture of sausage. I mean, great day, having some sausage. That's fine and dandy, in the context of humor and all those things. But when you're trying to sell a product, you can easily misconstrue. I guess social media will tell you that a taste develops, trend develops on social media, right? And the large audience has a certain taste for things. And I'm thinking about tasting the sausage right now, but a picture of meat is not going to do really well, No. And some of the best social media that I've ever seen have come from companies, ironically and coincidentally, from Slim Jim.
Really?
Yeah, Slim Jim has made it they got an absolute comedian for a social media manager, and he deliberately comments on all the most viral, posts that are happening right now to increase the stock value of his comments and the company's comments and the relevancy of it. And so there's a direct ploy to try and be as relevant and popular and attached to anything that's going on. And it's brilliant. For a national company like that, if they had a less creative person, they would post pictures of meat. And that person would think that that's what you're supposed to do when you have a meat company. No. Comment brilliant things on everybody else's posts.
Yeah, kind of like how progressive car insurance is. It's not about car insurance at all, about something else. But it gets you in the idea of watching it the whole time.
Right.
One thing I want to talk to you about, y'all's strategy, whether it be a product or a person, or a company. I know, example with me, I had limited budget, had an 8-week campaign. The gentleman who I've been running against, been in office for 12 years. He's a very distinguished gentleman. He had never done social media, or if any at all. Maybe his wife or daughter might post for him. It just wasn't his shtick.
Right.
So I remember when I went with you, and I had X amount of weeks to have my post out, have my videos go out, and we decided that, okay, we're going to do about a quarter of my budget this weekend when I announce.
Right.
And I was blown away because within, 72 hours, I had like 21,000 views, not likes, but views, people watching the video. Within 72 hours, the other gentleman dropped out of the race.
You intimidated your opponents to drop out of the race.
Well, I don't say him personally, but yeah, he dropped out. And I think that's what I want these people who want to run for office as challengers against these sacred old cows. Not that the guy I was running against was an old cow, but everybody gets intimidated by these people. Oh, they got all this money. They've been around, but they don't realize that a lot of folks don't pay attention, if only through social media, like we said before. Are you relevant?
Right.
And I think when they saw, the hammer that you can lay down on somebody.
Yeah.
When you announce that you have your site up, you got your videos, your content, everything about you, and there's somebody who's never had to be competed against in a real primary or a real general election.
Right.
Because they've always assumed just to win. What happens to that person? Well, they have to go, wow, I have to compete with this level now at this platform, and I've never done it before.
Right. No, there's good strategery, as George Bush said once, right? With a limited budget, you don't have to spend the same every day.
No.
For a period of time. There is a lot of merit, and I've not heard this explained by any other agency yet or podcast that I've ever listened to. But it's just my concept of budget compression, of compressing the budget and slingshotting it, like starting off strong in your case, and then we increased the spend as we got closer to the election date. We identified the two most important parts of your campaign were going to be when you launched and the day before election, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to spend the same amount in between and then not have a strong finish or, have spent the majority of your money by the time the election comes around. So logically is, again, that logical application that that I'm also accustomed to dealing with, having a limited budget. I said I spent $100,000 a month. That doesn't sound limited. It was limited with respect to the sales that I was getting. And so I was trying to also deal with a restricted budget and had so many things that I could do or couldn't do. And of course, there are times where, let's say, the level of aggression or energy, it wavers. And at certain times of the month, it doesn't need to be that it's quite as strong. So I think a lot of agencies will do a set it and forget it with your money. And say, oh, you have X amount of dollars. Okay, we'll run it for 30 days.
It's on autopilot.
Yeah, and it's the easiest thing to set up on autopilot.
But for me, what blew me away, and again, it's not that it's some secret. Some people do it. Some people don't do it at all, but you do it very well. And I remember during the last few weeks of the election that moms in carpool lines waiting for their kids to be picked up were getting my ads at that time of day. And like you said, they weren't doing it at 9 in the morning. You're doing it at 2:45 every day in these locations, and they're getting my ad.
Yep.
And not only are they getting my ad, they're the only ones that are registered voters or likely voters, and they weren't the other side of the spectrum. They were never getting my ad. The other spectrum was always getting my ad because I know they're the ones who are going to vote for me.
Right.
So, not to divulge your secrets, but
that was a combination of targeting concepts that we deployed.
Do agencies do that though? Well,
I all I can say is they don't have a vested interest in the outcome. The potential for them to just do the easiest thing and brainless thing exists. So you have to have trust and transparency, and you have to have the confidence that the agency that you're working with is not only going to think of those things, but actually deploy them and then have fun showing you the benefit of that. That's what you and I did. Mm-hmm. We were like, look at all these moms from the carpool time at this school. We dropped a pin on that particular location, which is available in Facebook. And we saw the activity that we were getting from that particular campaign. We were separated our campaign out so that particular campaign could be monitored separately from the other campaigns we were running. Mm-hmm. And it had its own unique set of statistics that we could monitor and watch. And we geeked out on that stuff.
You guys, you're able to see behind the dashboard what's really working, what's not working.
We make those determinations from a variety of analytics that are available. But Google Analytics I like better than Facebook Analytics.
Okay.
And between the two of them, you can really arrive at a lot of different determinations. But They have their advantages and disadvantages. There's so many levels of analytics that are available that if you don't know they exist, you're not going to use them. UTM targeting is a very common. It should be a common. It's not used commonly, but it's a very specific way of tagging your Facebook campaigns so that they appear more clearly in Google Analytics, basically, so that we can see the efficacy of our efforts there more clearly. Otherwise, for instance, on Google Analytics, it will just go under the category of Facebook. And we can look at all the clicks that we got from Facebook. But we want to know the very specific campaigns themselves, which Facebook campaigns themselves led to that traffic. And then we want to compare that to how Facebook's analytics are to see if there's any difference. Sometimes there are, and there's different reasons for that too. Cross-device, cross-platform, all those kinds of theories. They're more advanced concepts to digest, but at the end of the day, you want an agency that can come up with clever content. Of course, we all do. Everybody wants good creative content. I want to look awesome. I want to be clever. I want to be funny, whatever it is. But actually, I have to tell you, the most important thing is who cares if you're not setting it up right so that anybody will see it, right?
So what would you tell a campaign? Okay, because politics is something new that y'all are doing, and y'all been successful so far.
Yeah.
And y'all have now candidates coming out of the woodwork asking that help them.
That's right. We do.
Like you helped me.
Yeah.
And some of these are not only just local, some of them are state, some of them are even beyond that.
Right.
What would you tell that person, their team? Because I got to assume that campaign managers, staff, everybody gets territorial of what they can do. Y'all aren't really taking over a campaign. You're just enhancing it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with politics to understand why campaign managers are necessary on local levels.
Okay.
I understand. I can imagine how busy they are on a grander platform with, thousands and thousands of connections and networking and scheduling and things like that. I don't pretend to understand all that, and I don't want to. I look at each politician as it's just another company, another product. The theories are still the same as far as what I'm going to do and drive attention, drive awareness, get traffic to the website, analyze that data, optimize the campaigns even more based on that data.
Okay.
That's my own lane. I'm not going to give political advice. I'm not a political person. I don't care what politics are of the particular candidate necessarily. The interesting thing is that makes me a conservative in many regards because I'm not actively contributing to the candidate's theories or the candidate's opinions about special interests or issues. I'm not involved in that. I just simply say, what are your most important issues? And then I make a determination. If this person is likable, we're going to win. Because I'm going to reveal that person is likable. And a visual podcast is probably the greatest thing I've seen yet in revealing the personality of somebody, but also permitting the audience to determine for themselves if that candidate is likable.
One thing you did for me was that, most people say, well, what's a visual podcast? Well, this is a visual podcast.
Right, yeah.
But unlike an infomercial,
right,
where you can edit and that kind of stuff, and it's just cheesy and it's all been planned out. We just walked into the room.
I had no idea what we were going to talk about.
And you thought you were going to be interviewing me, and then I said, I'm going to interview you.
You turned the tables on me, yeah.
But for 30 minutes straight, we did this to me about a month ago, and it's on my site.
Yeah.
And yes, you did find clips to make nice 45-second to minute ads that we can run on social media.
Right.
That's me being a sincere, genuine kind of guy.
Yeah.
But you also put the whole unedited reel on the site, didn't you?
Sure, yeah.
So people
could see it.
It's almost like a fact check. Is it really real?
You're right.
If I would have had a booger in my nose or a cough or whatever, it would have been shown in the video.
Right, yeah. And you didn't know what questions I was going to ask you, which I think contributed to making it more conversational. If you had advance notice, like, what are your important issues? What do you care about this and this? You would have we would have run the risk of you formulating your sentence structures and your opinions in advance, and it would have sounded a little bit more robotic. I mean, we could easily have a 6-pack of beer right here, and it's just two guys talking at a bar. And we should probably do that next time.
We should.
It's a little early today, though, but it's noon. With this visual podcast that we're calling it, is really, it's the greatest thing I've seen, because for a politician, this is not, I'm not a journalist with CNN or Fox News, and so it contributes to the casualness of it, and you can be more cavalier about your opinions about things, and not be as nervous or concerned. If this was a live journalistic event, you might be more uptight. You got to watch what you say. Don't want to screw up. You can be nervous about it all night long. But just two people talking at a table or a couch, it's just a lot more inherently relaxing, and the results that you get are
I would
great.
wish, because I've been in debates before. When you have debates in town halls, everybody's all scripted, and you're nervous, and you're trying to find the camera.
Right.
And it's nothing like this. I almost kind of wish that the editors of newspapers would do something like this with each candidate.
Yes.
And offer them, hey, you can come in and you can talk, and you can sell your vision to the people that vote for you, but we're going to ask the questions, and you're not going to know they are in advance.
Right.
And it's going to be 30 minutes of unedited where anybody can watch and go back and watch the whole thing. So if you coughed, you stuttered, whatever, it's going to be shown up there. But I think it shows you as being a real human.
Right.
And people will gravitate more to that than this cheesy car dealership infomercial.
Right. Or think about a presidential debate. I mean, some of it was a debacle of Biden and Trump. Now everyone's suspecting this old guy's got an earpiece and he's being fed lines to give. This guy walks old. This guy is grumpy, and this guy's body language is. What if the two of them were sitting at a table like this? I can't imagine.
That'd be fun.
That would be so fun, right? It'd be revealing. It'd be fascinating.
It's almost like the Nixon Frost debates.
Well, the Nixon JFK debate did not go well for Nixon, but that JFK shined in that one, and it was suited for him. He was made for TV. Nixon was nervous, and he was getting outshined. And maybe that would happen in this format too. But it just seems more casual. I would love to hear two intelligent people have different opinions about a subject matter, a debate, in this style of this casual format.
Versus just some commercial that says guns, America,
right,
and Jesus.
Right. And you can see if they have earpieces in their ears, and they're sitting so they don't have to worry about getting exhausted after a half hour.
So I know, not only because we're friends, but because how you treated my campaign, as a product. And you had to make sure the product won.
Right.
And the results are there. What do you want to tell those future clients that are thinking about running? They have the ideas, they have the personality, they have the respect of the community, but they just don't know should they take that step. What would you tell them?
If they should take the step of running, you mean, or take the step of getting into digital marketing?
I would say both.
Yeah. I think the goal is to reveal.
Okay.
And show everybody that you are likable, and not produce contrived things and get awkward with it. I think this type of format, this type of conversational, situation is ideal for politicians to be able to be comfortable and express their opinions about things, but also be casual in nature and be more conversational. And all of your material that you present, whether you hire Lot 22 or not, all your content that you put on social media or on your website, all of that should be, I think, geared in your mind to, does this make me likable or not? I hate to say that. I mean, this feels like,
Or how about approachable?
Approachable, accessible,
real.
Transparent, real. All these words are similar. And I think that should be the main goal. And if everyone's looking at their phones,
Which they are.
If you're not on it,
You're lying.
then you don't exist. I mean, you really don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're posting pictures of meat, or if you don't get it, then get some help. But media channels are available. You can control the narrative. You have your own media channels. These platforms are available. it's an unbelievable opportunity. This is the biggest change in politics I can think of. And it's never going to be like this again. Eventually, everyone's going to be on it, and then it will evolve into something else. We'll be talking about artificial intelligence next time, 3D virtual worlds, I'm sure. I know it. It's going to happen. We're already talking about selling advertising on 3D virtual worlds.
Really?
Yeah. It's the Oculus and everybody watching 3D reality and virtual reality. Those spaces are all available. So it's wherever the eyes go, advertising is going to go.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so think about it. Just a few years ago, what was it like when you're watching a baseball game or a football game and there's only limited advertising for billboard ads? And they go, oh, let's just put a digital ad on the field while they're playing the game. Just like
project
that,
it.
Just like that yellow line that you watch for the first down marker.
Right.
And now whatever's on the screen is available.
Right.
So it's the same kind of concept. It's going from the old school stuff of, hey, we only have so many billboards we can sell at the stadium, but guess what? If you're watching on TV,
Right.
we can put anything and project it on there and make it look cool, and it's an ad.
Yeah, it's the banner ads were big on websites when websites, around 2000, 2002, started really getting into digital, ad spending. Everybody wanted to sell space on their website. I could get some money for this. And, certain newspapers, Birmingham News and some other ones, sold so much of it that's all it looked like was one Vegas show, one digital ad space. But yeah, where the eyes go, you just have to, it's very, somebody said the other day, the only two things in life are guaranteed are death and taxes. Mm-hmm. I have one more to add, and that is advertising. I'm not kidding, because as these platforms change, as the times change, everyone is going to need some form of advertising. Businesses will always need some, whether it's under the auspices of brand recognition, name recognition, brand awareness. There's always going to be something happening. And so that's going to be the next phase. Right now, it's social media. Right now, it's especially social media and politics, because the older age group has been late to embrace it. And the younger campaign, runners, the younger people that are running now are embracing it. And the older crowd is in for a world of hurt.
Well, people also kid themselves. It's like people say, well, I'm not involved in social media. I don't need that platform. Well, it's no different than you have a choice. Mm-hmm. Okay, to apply for a job, I can give you my resume, paper resume, or what are employers going to do now? Where's your LinkedIn?
Right.
They're going to look at that.
They want your digital resume.
And so they want that. And I think people don't realize, it's like a dating app.
Right.
You do have, if you don't use the filters, you're only hurting yourself. It's like old school dial-up.
Right.
Okay, by using the platforms and using them correctly and having the right tutelage and guidance,
right.
That's a big thing too. You can actually impress more than you ever could before.
Right.
What is said in content, what is said in your interviews, what is said and how you reach people, those, I've learned through you in Lot 22 that, gosh, those ads that we did, that may have been a 45-second ad, but we had to get their attention the first 3 seconds or they would just forget about it.
Right. Well, that's another trick of the trade, too, that you have to understand. You've got 3 seconds to keep people's attention or they're just going to thumb scroll, right? And you need thumb-stopping content. You really do. Thumb stoppers, right? And that's essentially what it is. Everyone's just going, what's that? What's that? What's that? And that's why, girls in bikinis do so well on Instagram. Stop. What is that? It's just the truth. I mean, these are human facts. And that's been that way in advertising forever. But and depending on the context of your feed and the things that you're interested in, for instance, I love cameras. I love guitars. That's my whole feed. That's all I get are ads for cameras and guitars.
And how they get that?
Nope, I'm not.
How they get that?
Because that's all the websites I go to, and it goes back to Digital Marketing 101. If you get somebody to go to the website, those people like me analyze that traffic and can easily now reach back out to people who came to my website.
So when I get some on Instagram, and I'm notorious for buying stuff on Instagram.
Me too, especially at night.
Even though if I don't buy anything, once I hit shop now and it takes me to their site, they got me.
Once you've gone onto their website, whether you buy anything or not, The fact that you bought something or not puts you into another category of probably even better lead potential for that advertiser. But advertisers can advertise back to people who actually put something in their shopping cart. We run ads to to remind people that they abandoned their shopping
I've had that
cart.
happen before.
Sure, yeah.
And I forgot all about it until that happened.
And you can't believe the valid response that we get from
It's like
it.
almost a good customer service follow-up.
It is. Under those auspices, it's just a courteous follow-up, but we save 20% of the abandoned carts.
Wow.
Yeah, very common. Remarketing, all these concepts, they're basic in the structure and the definition of how they work, but the clever use of them, is really dependent on the agency that you have and to make sure that they're using them for the client's best interests. I would rather have a client say, I got $1 million. All I want is one campaign, run it across the world. I don't care for 30 days. I'd be like, okay, it would take me 30 seconds and I'd knock it out. But let's break it down. What are you selling? All right, let's target people that are in the market for what you're selling. Let's target people that have a relevant interest in what you're talking about. Let's target the areas of the world that they'll sell better than others, and let's maximize the return on investment that you're actually making instead of just diluting this and showing ads to people in Bangladesh or, Mogadishu. Maybe they're not interested in ballet shoes in those areas. So
what services does Lot 22 provide beyond just the social media, ads? What else do y'all do?
Sure. Well, we call ourselves a full-scale agency. We started off in social media marketing, and the science of that is what interested us the most. And then that, of course, being a car dealer for so long, I was also doing my own Google AdWords. And then that, of course, led to YouTube display ads. And that, of course, led to the science of YouTube and Twitter and all that. So we go full spectrum on the social side to the search side, which is, mostly Google and some Bing. Popularity-wise, obviously, Google is the dominant one. But what we really like, too, is content production. So whether you need a video, a sizzle reel, we call it, if you're a sports team, which we're doing right now. I can't wait to tell people about that. And whether you're a politician or a landscaper, you also need your website, have best practices. So we do full-scale website development and design. And that is what's interesting about it is when a client comes and says, I need a new website. Okay, what are we going to put on it? Well, I don't know.
You got to have content.
You got to have content, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we suggest that we get some awesome photography of the products that you sell. We suggest we get some video, and that can be also on the website, but that would be used in the future for both social media and ads when you're ready to advertise. You'll have those assets. And a lot of that stuff can be evergreen in nature. It can last a long time. Once you have those, you have a treasure trove, and then you don't need to keep doing that all the time.
Good point.
Yeah, so those kinds of concepts, if you will, are ones that we often advocate so that when people are starting a business or starting a campaign, for their politics or whatever, they get that treasure trove in place, where you have all the content you're going to need for the next year or so. And then you have so many more options. You're not scurrying to, I got to get footage of this, footage of that. Now it's just up to you and how often you want to gather that stuff.
That's a good idea because it also allows you, like in my campaign, the ads that we ran, they're still there. So if a reporter wants to find out what my thoughts are on a certain subject, they can just go to the site.
Right.
And see me word for word what I'd say.
Right. And our job is to also make sure, being a full-scale agency, that whether it's a politician or not, is that you've got the proper branding elements in place. The old adages of consistent brand colors, contribute to the psychology, unique fonts, you don't always betraying your fonts and you're always presenting yourself in a different way. All those things are branding 101 concepts.
Is that why all my backgrounds were always in blue?
That's right. Yeah. Well, now we're changing that to a different color now, but we kept the blue background in all your endorsement videos and all that because we wanted people to associate that color showing up in their feed with you. And it worked. A lot of people are asking you, like, why do you use blue? Why do you use blue, right? I mean, well, you should use different colors. We can use rainbow. Right? It doesn't matter as long as it was consistent. And that was just the branding 101 concept we applied to you.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, Gordie.
Thank you. That was fun.